Everyone only talks about GTA 6, but what many people don't realize is that 2026 is packed with incredible single-player games that could easily fly under your radar. We're talking about immense worlds, insane narratives, and experiences that promise to mark the next generation of games, each with its own identity, without relying on multiplayer or empty promises. So, today, let's forget the GTA 6 hype for a bit and dive into the 10 single-player games that have everything to be amazing next year. I'm Matthew, and the video is starting now.
Has been the impetus for human wars.
Crimson Desert is an open-world action-adventure game developed by Pearl Abyss, scheduled for release on the 19th of March 2026 for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, Windows, and macOS. Set in the fictional continent of Pywell, a medieval fantasy setting marked by wars and mysterious forces, the game places you in control of Cliff, a mercenary who is part of the Greymaine's clan. The story revolves around rebuilding the clan after a devastating attack by a rival faction, the Black Bears, and the struggle for power in a world destabilized by the absence of the King of Demenis, who is plunged into a coma. The combat in Crimson Desert is dynamic and heavy, focusing on timing, positioning, and precision, incorporating a variety of weapons and styles, from swords and axes to polearms and dual daggers, each with unique combos and realistic animations captured by professional stuntmen. The experience is interspersed with cinematic moments and tactical interactions, including using the environment to defeat enemies. Furthermore, it is possible to fight while mounted on horseback and face gigantic bosses, such as mechanical dragons. Movement through the world is fluid and free, including climbing, swimming, and using tools like a grappling hook and glider, all in a vibrant and reactive environment, with day and night cycles, dynamic weather, and a robust AI that brings life to the fauna, population, and conflicts around you. The plot has a more adult and dramatic vibe, focusing on themes like leadership, honor, and survival, as Cliff seeks to reunite his scattered companions and restore the glory of the Greymanes. The game also promises that your choices and actions will affect the world and the unfolding of the narrative, allowing for a more personalized and immersive experience. The detailed setting, with vibrant small villages, bustling markets, and a tangible sense of a real world at war, adds depth to the scenery and the development of the characters and story. Personally, Crimson Desert seems like a natural evolution for Pearl Abyss, moving from the MMO model of Black Desert Online to a single-player RPG that seems to balance a strong narrative with freedom of exploration and intense combat. I found the promise of combat that feels both technical and cinematic interesting, a challenge for players who like to deepen their skills, and the open world that seems alive with many details to explore, which reminds me of the good times in games like The Witcher 3 and Sekiro. The possibility of experiencing epic battles, including large sieges and mechanical bosses, with a realistic physics system and dynamic weather, should bring a lot of excitement and surprise at every step of the adventure. I am excited to see if the game will be able to deliver on the promise of being an immersive and deep experience without falling into bugs or optimization issues, something that worried some fans after the announcement of its complexity. But from what I've seen so far, Crimson Desert seems capable of offering an engaging, tough, and emotional adventure with lots of action and a story that can conquer both fans of traditional RPGs and open-world games. For those who like games with robust combat, dense narratives, and real immersion in the game world, it is very much worth keeping an eye on it at launch. Nioh 3 is the next big step in Team Ninja's acclaimed series, scheduled for release on the 6th of February 2026 for PlayStation 5 and Windows. This time, the game mixes classic elements from previous games with significant innovations, especially in combat. The story takes place in a historical Japan marked by chaos. The world is taken over by yokai, and the rise of Shogun Takechiyo happens amidst a grim scenario where his brother Kunimatsu, consumed by envy, summons dark powers to dominate hordes of creatures. You accompany Takechiyo on an epic journey spanning centuries, facing legendary bosses and trying to restore balance in a world corroded by the evil power of the Crucible. The highlight of the game is the combat system, which now allows you to instantly switch between two styles, samurai and ninja. The samurai style brings the classic balance between defense, blocks, and ki pulse, while the ninja is more agile, focused on evasion, stealth attacks, and the new mist system, which allows for rapid displacement or the creation of clones to distract enemies. This instant switching creates unpredictable attack combinations, and encounters require precise timing, with the possibility of dodging powerful attacks and counterattacking with mastery. Additionally, exploration gains new elements, such as the ability to jump, crouch, and explore more complex terrains, expanding the sense of freedom in the open world. The supernatural elements have also evolved. In addition to classic yokai, the game introduces the living artifact system, which allows for unique transformations and abilities in the heat of battle. Talismans created from yokai souls add a magical and strategic touch to combat, making every encounter more dynamic. The game's atmosphere is dense and gloomy, with mysterious villages, detailed maps, and a day and night cycle that influences both the environment and gameplay mechanics, reinforcing immersion in a historical Japan where the supernatural mixes with the everyday. In my opinion, Nioh 3 seems to be a natural and bold evolution of the series, expanding on what already worked so well in Nioh 1 and 2, but adding freshness with the two combat classes that, when alternated, require the player to think more strategically in every battle. I think the way the game combines the brutality of Team Ninja's traditional combat with the fluidity of ninja mechanics is amazing, making everything more tactical and fun. Furthermore, exploration seems more rewarding, and the map system with exploration levels encourages the player to search every corner of the world to reach 100%. It is exactly the type of game that hooks me for hours and hours, always wanting to master every skill and discover every secret. If you are a fan of the series or simply like action games with challenging combat, Nioh 3 is almost certain to be one of the highlights of 2026. The game seems faithful to the spirit of the franchise, but at the same time is trying to reinvent itself to not fall into sameness, and that is very exciting. For those who want a deep experience full of action and challenges, with an engaging story and mechanics that evolve along with the player, Nioh 3 has everything to be one of the great action RPGs of the year. The Legend of Heroes Trails Beyond the Horizon is that type of JRPG that arrives in 2026 with the look of a mandatory event for those who follow the series, because it is literally the point where various paths of Zemuria begin to cross for real. The game comes out on the 15th of January 2026 in the West for PS4, PS5, PC, Nintendo Switch, and Switch 2, continuing the Calvard Republic arc started in Trails through Daybreak 1 and 2. Here, the atmosphere is one of the final stretch. The whole world is looking at humanity's first big step towards space, while underneath this, conspiracies, cults, corporations, and ancient forces are pulling the strings. Van Arkwright returns as the main protagonist, but now he shares the spotlight with two legends of the franchise, Reen Schwartzer and Kevin Graham, which already makes it clear that the story stakes are much higher than just solving detective cases in Calvard. The route system is one of the biggest differentiators of this game. You alternate between three main narrative fronts, following Van and the Arkwright Solutions, the Ashen Chevalier Reen, and Father Kevin, each dealing with different parts of the same threat that affects the entire continent. This structure reminds me a bit of what Trails into Reverie did, but here the focus is much heavier on Van, with the other two's routes appearing at key moments to expand the scope of the plot. In terms of universe, it is pure fan service for those who have followed the series for years. Characters from various arcs return, old plots receive payoff, and a lot of things that seem distant start to connect with secrets that were at the heart of Zemuria all along. But at the same time, the game still maintains that typical Trails vibe, with long dialogues, a living world, NPCs that evolve, and side quests that deepen politics, religion, technology, and the impact of this space project on people's common lives. On the gameplay side, Trails Beyond the Horizon maintains the hybrid real-time combat with transition to turn-based that we saw in Daybreak, but polished. You move freely around the battlefield, attack, dodge, and when you trigger certain commands or arts, you enter the tactical turn-based layer with that classic scheme of order, buffs, crafts, and arts. The idea is to give you the impact and dynamism of action, but without giving up the strategic chess that has always defined the series. Additionally, there is a bond system between characters, skill evolution, and very flexible builds, allowing you to adjust your team for specific combos, area damage, debuff, breaking defenses, etc. The exploration of the Calvard Republic remains strong, with huge cities, varied dungeons, mini-games, and those detective work quests that make Van circulate through all types of situations, from gang beefs to international political intrigue. Speaking very personally, this game gives me a strong feeling of reward for those who have been following the franchise for years. That idea of finally seeing Van, Reen, and Kevin sharing the screen in something big linked to a space project and the deepest secrets of Zemuria is exactly the kind of thing that makes a fan's heart beat faster. At the same time, you can feel that it is not a plug-and-play JRPG for just anyone. It is dense, full of text, full of context, and if a person enters without having played at least Daybreak 1 and 2, they will probably lose much of the emotional weight. But thinking as a player who likes RPGs with a living world full of politics, connected lore, and combat that mixes action and strategy, Trails Beyond the Horizon looks like that type of game you install, already knowing it will become a commitment of dozens of hours, and that for a 2026 release is something that excites me too much. The only however I see is that it is almost custom made for those who are already inside the Trails universe. For a newcomer, it's like entering the last arc of a giant anime without having seen the rest. But if the idea is precisely to follow this conclusion of the Zemuria saga and see the Calvard arc reach an all-or-nothing atmosphere, Trails Beyond the Horizon looks like it will be one of the most important JRPGs of 2026. For those who enjoy long narratives, well-developed characters, deep combat, and a world that resembles a giant soap opera of political fantasy and sci-fi, this is that type of game you play slowly, savoring every dialogue, every cutscene, and every revelation. It is the type of RPG that doesn't try to be just another release of the year, it wants to be the chapter that changes the level of the entire series. Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is a very bold remake of one of the most traditional JRPGs in the series, arriving on the 5th of February 2026 for PS5, Xbox Series, PC, Switch, and Switch 2. Here you return to the island of Istard as a fisherman's son, thinking the world boils down to that little piece of land, until discovering the Shrine of Mysteries, traveling through time, and realizing that various islands were sealed by an evil force. The structure remains based on traveling to the past, solving the conflict of that era, restoring the peace of the world, and then seeing how that changes the present, but with a much leaner and more fluid story, with subplots cut and new important events included. The idea is to keep the vibe of a giant adventure through time, only without the dragged out pacing of the original, making the campaign more focused and accessible. The visuals are one of the points that draw the most attention. Instead of just HDifying the game, Square Enix went for a diorama style, with characters and scenarios looking like handcrafted dolls in a miniature world. Toriyama's designs became super expressive 3D models, with textures of real materials on clothes and equipment, almost as if you were playing with a living model kit set. This gives the game a lot of personality and fits well with the idea of traveling through different islands in time, each with its aesthetic and mood. It is that type of visual that, even being cute, doesn't take away the weight of the adventure. It just makes everything more memorable and easy to remember. In gameplay, it continues to be a classic turn-based Dragon Quest, but with several modernizations to reduce grind and make everything more enjoyable to play. Enemies appear on the map, as in Dragon Quest XI, and weak monsters can be defeated straight in the overworld without entering battle, which already cuts out a bunch of useless encounters. The big highlight is the renovated vocation system with the moonlighting mechanic. Each character can equip 2 classes at the same time, mixing skills, magic, and bonuses from both. And there is also the new Monster Master vocation, which allows summoning powerful monsters in the fight. There is also the Let Loose skill, which triggers when the character snaps from stress, and various quality of life options, such as auto battle, speeding up combat, adjusting damage, XP, and money to practically let you design the difficulty you want. What I liked most is that this remake seems focused on taking what Dragon Quest VII had strongest, the sensation of a huge adventure through time, visiting several smaller stories, and cutting precisely what drove many people away: broken pacing, too much backtracking, and heavy grind. The vocation part with moonlighting pleases me too much because it transforms building a build into something fun instead of a tiring obligation. Being able to combine 2 classes opens up a lot of cool possibilities without needing to stay hours just leveling up. And this diorama, visual model style, conveys a very cozy sensation of a weekend JRPG, that game to play calmly, exploring cities, talking to NPCs, entering dungeons, and getting lost in the journey, you know? Dragon Quest VII Reimagined seems perfect if you enjoy classic JRPG, but no longer have patience for stiff PS1 systems. It maintains the heart of the original, the story of leaving a little island and discovering that the world is much bigger, fixing the past to save the present, only with modern care and pacing, interface, and combat. The only thing is that it is still a text game with lots of conversation and solving cases on each island, so it is not a fast action RPG, but rather that type you sit down, relax, and let the story take you. For 2026, it seems like one of the best candidates for comfortable JRPG of the year. Big, classic, but much friendlier for today's real life. Monster Hunter Stories 3. Twisted Reflection is the 3rd game in the turn-based RPG line of Monster Hunter, arriving on the 13th of March 2026 for Switch 2, PS5, Xbox Series, and PC via Steam. The story takes place 2 centuries after a conflict that separated the neighboring kingdoms of Azuria and Vermeil, and now war is about to explode again because of a mystical event. The birth of twin Rathalos from a single egg, something that was considered extinct and is seen as an omen of destruction. You play as the heir to the throne of Azuria, the only Rathalos rider in the kingdom, and need to unite with Princess Eleanor of Vermeil to try to avoid total chaos while investigating a phenomenon called crystal encroachment, which is crystallizing life forms and destabilizing entire ecosystems. It's that classic JRPG vibe of saving the world, but with all the Monster Hunter identity of creating bonds with monsters and exploring a world full of iconic creatures. The gameplay follows the turn-based RPG line that the story series always had, but with very cool evolutions. Combat is based on an expanded rock, paper, scissors system, where you and your monsties, the monsters you tame, need to predict the enemy's attack and choose between power, speed, or technical attacks to gain advantage and knock down their defense bar. As you break the enemy's posture, they get stunned, and you can unleash special combined attacks with your monsties, the so-called Synchro Rush, which do a ton of damage. Egg collecting continues to be a central part. You explore the world, find nests, grab eggs from different monsters, and hatch them to form your team. Each monstie has its skills, attack types, and can be customized with genes, which you swap between them to build specific builds and create devastating combos. Visually, the game is using a very well-crafted cel-shaded style, similar to what Nintendo did in the open-world Zelda games, with marked outlines and vibrant colors that give a lot of personality to the monsters and scenarios. The setting promises to be more mature than the previous games, with a narrative focused on war, political intrigue between the two kingdoms, and the mystery behind these twin Rathalos and the crystal encroachment. Exploration looks freer too, with large areas for you to mount your monstie, fly, swim, and investigate, plus dungeons, caves, and places full of secrets and rare eggs to collect. It is that balance between the cute adventure of taming monsters and a more serious and dramatic plot. I think this is the type of game Capcom got right in transforming. They took the initial idea of Pokemon with Monster Hunter and matured the series to become a real JRPG, with a denser narrative, deeper mechanics, and a visual that converses better with those who are already fans of classic RPGs. This vibe of two kingdoms at war, with you being the point of union between them, reminds me a lot of Fire Emblem and other tactical JRPGs. Only here the focus is on turn-based combat and the relationship with monsters. I loved the idea of exploring this crystallization phenomenon, because it seems like something that goes beyond just another villain, you know? It has an air of environmental mystery, almost like a disease of the world, and that gives weight to the story. Monster Hunter Stories 3 seems perfect for those who enjoy turn-based JRPGs, collecting and customizing a team, and want a more relaxed experience than the action Monster Hunter games. It is not that frenetic pace of hunting a giant monster with 50 hits per second. Here it is more strategic, more calculated, and very focused on assembling your squad of monsties and discovering badass combinations of genes and attacks. The visuals are beautiful, the story premise seems engaging, and the fact that it launches multi-platform on the same day, including Switch 2, already guarantees it will be one of the most accessible JRPGs of 2026. For those who are fans of the main series and want a different flavor, or for those who like Pokemon but want something more adult and tactical, this game has everything to be one of the most fun releases of the first quarter of the year. Developed by Housemarque, the same guys from Returnal, Saros is a single-player, third-person action game set on the planet Carcosa, a lost colony under a sinister eclipse that changes everything around it. You control Arjun Devraj, a tough Soltari enforcer played by Rahul Kohli, yes, the actor from Midnight Mass, who arrives there to unravel what happened to the colony and who or what he is looking for with such obsession. It is a haunting sci-fi story, with a time loop and nightmare monsters, promising an emotional character study about the cost of a new future. The gameplay is what shines most in the trailers, pure roguelite, but with permanent progression that makes every death worthwhile, unlike Returnal, which threw you back to zero. You use the Soltari shield to block and absorb enemy projectile energy, transforming your right arm into powerful Carcosan weapons, like an Eclipse sword that corrupts you but gives you an insane boost in combat. The biomes change shape, hostile ruins, fluid dodges, precise parries, and an arsenal mixing human and alien tech, culminating in epic bosses that require total mastery of patterns. Exploring Carcosa, you collect Soltari holograms that reveal the planet's lore and the catastrophic events, adding layers to the mysterious narrative. There is the second chance system to give you a lifeline in battles, and after dying, the world changes, but you come back stronger with permanent upgrades to weapons, suits, and loadout. It is addictive, perfect for those who enjoy intense runs with long-term evolution. Everything optimized for the PS5 Pro with fast and precise cinematic combat. Man, I am hyped too much for Saros because it takes what Returnal did best, that third-person bullet hell that sucks you in, and evolves into something more accessible with progression that doesn't frustrate as much. The announcement and gameplay trailers show absurd fluidity with Unreal Engine 5 visuals that will explode on the PS5 Pro, and Rahul Kohli's acting already promises a charismatic and emotionally broken protagonist. Look, as a fan of Souls-likes and Metroidvanias, Saros seems like the sci-fi roguelite of my dreams. If it delivers half the tension and reward that Returnal gave, it is already worth every second, but with more personal story and less punitive grind.
I'm Gregory Loudon, creative director at Housemarque. Today we are thrilled to show off this first look of gameplay for Saros running on PS5. Saros builds on Returnal's award-winning action and tells the emotional and haunting story of Arjun Devraj's drive for answers on the shape-shifting planet of Carcosa. Here we show off one of our exciting combat features, the Soltari Shield. By holding R1, you can defend yourself and absorb projectiles. By absorbing projectiles, you can now hit back hard using your power weapon. By holding the adaptive trigger on L2, you'll be able to destroy enemies using eclipse-driven weaponry.
Soltari holocache detected.
Mark it on the map.
Here is a Soltari hololog, where you can learn more about lost Carcosa.
I'll try to forget.
Hold on for me. I will find you. I promise.
This is Second Chance, where you can be revived on first death to get straight back into the action. Second Chance is part of our permanent progression systems, which means you will always come back stronger.
Hey guys, let me talk about this fear that is returning in 2026. Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly Remake, launching on the 12th of March 2026 for PS5, Xbox Series, Switch 2, and PC. The original from 2003 on PS2 marked generations as one of the most disturbing survival horrors ever made, and now Koei Tecmo with Team Ninja is bringing it back not as a remaster, but a complete remake from scratch. You control the twins Nioh and Mayu Amakura, who get lost in the mysterious Minakami village, guided by a crimson butterfly to a place that shouldn't exist. It is a story of the bond between sisters, ancestral sacrifice, and ghosts thirsty for revenge that follow you in every dark corridor. The atmosphere is the heart here: abandoned village, ruined houses, dense darkness, and that silence that makes you see things that don't exist. The remake promises relighting with a focus on light and shadow, textures of skin and clothing detailed to the maximum level, and camera effects that simulate zoom and real lens focus. Director Makoto Shibata confirmed they preserved the classic tension, That fear that grows as spirits approach, but with an immersion that only the PS5 Pro and the new generation can deliver. The locations were meticulously recreated to make you feel every hesitant step in the fog of the cursed village. The gameplay maintains the iconic camera obscura, that mystical camera that captures and sealed spirits, only now with more dynamic and visual combat thanks to Team Ninja's collaboration on the battle systems. You photograph ghosts to face them, wait for the perfect moment of shutter chance to deal more damage, and there is also the new holding hands with Mayu mechanic, which allows you to feel the deep connection between the sisters like never before. It has voices in Japanese with subtitles in various languages, and the reformulated control promises to be more responsive without losing the essence of vulnerability that defines the franchise. Man, look at this. This remake arrives after 13 years without a relevant launch from the Fatal Frame franchise since 2012. It is the first time since then that Silent Hill, Resident Evil, and Fatal Frame launch important titles in an interval of only 6 months. Remembering that Silent Hill F came out in September 2025, and Resident Evil Requiem is coming in February 2026. This shows how much Japanese horror is on the rise again, and Koei Tecmo is betting high on this complete reconstruction, not just a texture up-res. The psychological climate, the slow and terrifying pace, everything preserved, but with current technology to make every ghostly manifestation even more palpable. Personally, I am hyped too much because Fatal Frame 2 was the peak of the series for me. That story of the twins, the emotional weight of protecting your sister while facing things that shouldn't exist, was something few horror games managed to balance. The remake promises not only to bring that back, but to amplify every moment of despair with next-gen graphics and that even more immersive camera system. If they deliver half of the dense and disturbing atmosphere of the original with the technical quality the trailers show, it will be one of the mandatory survival horrors of 2026. I can't wait to get lost in Minakami Village again. Or rather, for the first time in this new version, it is going to be absolutely terrifying. Let's talk about the long-awaited Code Vein 2, which arrives on the 30th of January 2026 for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. This return by Bandai Namco promises to be even more intense than the original, bringing back the universe of the Revenants, cursed vampires who survive in a world devastated by a mysterious catastrophe. The story now explores a new generation of Revenants, full of twists, emotions, and that somber and melancholic atmosphere that only Code Vein knows how to deliver so well. All this with improved graphics and gameplay, making every detail even more immersive. The big highlight of Code Vein 2 is the new time travel system, which allows exploring different timelines and altering events according to your choices. This not only changes how you experience the story, but also impacts the world around you, creating an even greater sense of responsibility. The combat is more fluid, with new attacks, special skills, and the famous blood system, which is still essential to survive and evolve. Furthermore, cooperation with companions continues to be central. You can call virtual allies or even invite friends to face challenges together with you. Character customization has been brilliantly expanded. Now you can shape every aspect of your Revenant, from appearance to fighting style, choosing from countless unique skills and equipment. The soundtrack, with the return of striking songs from the first game and new compositions, only increases the immersion. The scenarios are also even more detailed and varied, ranging from ruined cities to cursed forests, all designed to make you feel that every step could be the last. Man, as a fan of Souls-likes and deep combat games, Code Vein has always been one of my favorites. The first game had that perfect mixture of difficulty, story, and visuals that hooked you from beginning to end. Code Vein 2 promises to improve all these points, making the experience even more challenging and exciting. The time travel mechanics, combined with cooperation and customization, show that Bandai Namco heard fan feedback and delivered a product that will please both those who played the original and those arriving now. Personally, I'm rooting for Code Vein 2 to bring back that unique sensation of being in a hostile world, where every decision counts and every battle makes you reflect. If the game manages to maintain the essence of the original and improve everything that was well received, it will be another one of the great highlights of 2026. I am already crazy to dive into this dark world again and discover what the Revenants are keeping in this new journey. I can't wait to see how it all unfolds. Man, PI for Hire is that type of game that just by looking at you already feel it's going to be different from everything that came out in 2026. It arrives on the 19th of March 2026 for PC, PS5, Xbox Series, and Switch, including Switch 2, and places you in the shoes of private investigator Jack Pepper, a former war hero now stuck up to his neck in the rot of Mouseburg City. The vibe is totally single player, with a noir campaign full of corruption, kidnapping, murder, and conspiracies that start with a simple little case and escalate until turning into something much bigger. All this with Jack being voiced by Troy Baker, which already gives an absurd weight to the scenes and dialogues. What draws attention right away is the visual. It is as if someone took drawings from the 1,930 seconds like Roots Mickey, threw them into a noir city full of smoke, neon, and crime, and transformed everything into an FPS. The game is in black and white, with that rubber hose style drawn by hand, frame by frame, so every movement of the characters looks like an old animation, only mixed with cartoonish violence, giant weapons, and lots of chaos. The soundtrack is all big band jazz, very golden age of cinema, so while you are machine gunning gangs of rats and shrews, the sound is crazed swing orchestra. It is that perfect contrast between cute and sinister. In gameplay, it is a modern boomer shooter, fast-paced, lots of movement, no staying still behind cover. The focus is to run, jump, use unlockable movement skills, and pump lead into everything that appears, with more than a dozen weapons with cartoonish twists and consumable power-ups that completely turn the game in a difficult fight. There are more than 20 noir stages scattered around the city. Dark streets, cinemas, movie studios, opera houses, toxic swamps, sewers, all packed with exaggerated enemies and crazy bosses. And there is still a Metroidvania touch in exploration, with movement skills that unlock new paths in old areas. What makes everything more interesting to me is that it is not just shooting for shooting's sake. There is a side of investigation and narrative that is well cared for. You go following clues, discovering who is pulling the strings behind Mouseburg, talking to dubious figures, and seeing Jack Pepper sink deeper and deeper into a plot of crime and corruption. From what they have already shown in trailers, deep dive, documentaries, and demos, the game alternates well between frenetic shootouts and calmer moments of heavy atmosphere and world building, as if it were a playable noir movie with acid humor and lots of personality. This is one of the games that most conveys that instant cult classic vibe. It seems custom made for those who enjoy old school FPS, love old cartoon aesthetics like Cuphead, but want something in first person, violent, stylish, and with a tight and focused campaign. I really enjoy the mixture, the contrast of innocent art with brutal shooting, the frenetic jazz playing while everything explodes, and the feeling of playing a forbidden cartoon from the 30 seconds. If they deliver what they are promising in terms of pacing, stage variety, and Jack Pepper's charisma, PI for Hire has everything to be that single player of 2026 that we finish and already start recommending to everyone like, man, you need to play this here. Dude, Gothic 1 Remake is that type of game that arrives in 2026, looking like an instant classic, but at the same time feels like a reunion with something very important in RPG history. It is a complete remake of the Gothic from 2001, made by Alchemia Interactive and published by THQ Nordic, arriving in early 2026 for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series, with over 50 hours of open-world campaign focused totally on a single-player experience. The idea is to throw you back into the Valley of Mines, inside the colony trapped by the magic barrier, where you arrive as an anonymous prisoner and end up involved in a gigantic conflict between factions, mages, orcs, and the king himself, who exploits everyone. What they are promising is a remake very faithful in structure, but with everything reconstructed for current standards. Totally redone graphics, new art direction, modern lighting, smoother animations, and much more detail in every corner of the colony. The world is a real living world. NPCs work, sleep, eat, fight among themselves, and react to your actions. And the fauna also follows its own routines, leaving the setting with that sensation of a living and dangerous place. It continues to be a very raw RPG, difficult beginning, enemies that kill you in seconds if you slip up, and the feeling that you are really a nobody trying to rise in life in a hostile place. On the gameplay side, combat was totally modernized, but without losing the more tactical vibe of the original. No hack and slash without thinking. You need to position, control, stamina, dodge, block, and use timing well. They expanded missions, added more details to old quests, utilized areas that were empty in the original, and even brought back content that had been cut in 2001. According to interviews and the behind-the-scenes documentary, you still choose between 3 factions: Old Camp, New Camp, and Swamp Camp. And this influences not only skills and your fighting style, but also how the world reacts to you and which story paths open up. What excites me most, personally, is that you can feel that this remake exists because the community wanted this a lot. THQ Nordic itself said that more than 90% of the players who tested the teaser back then asked for a more faithful remake, and they practically rebooted the design to align with the spirit of the original. Seeing the reviews of the Nioh's demo and the impressions of the crowd, the feeling is that they maintained that cruel initial difficulty, the slow but rewarding progression, and the heavy atmosphere, only now with less stiff controls and a friendlier interface. It is that delicate balance between nostalgia and accessibility, and so far it seems they are going in the right direction. If you enjoy old school RPGs, dense open worlds, factions, choices with weight, and that feeling of I'm really trapped in a dangerous place, Gothic 1 Remake has everything to be one of the strongest RPGs of 2026. It is not the type of game that sells just for beautiful graphics or for being ultra cinematic. It conquers in the way the world reacts to you, in the sensation of rising from a scavenger getting beaten up to someone respected in the colony.